Welcome to Asian Like Me, presented by me, Dr. Sohee Jun, the podcast for the modern Asian woman redefining what it means to thrive. I've spent years navigating the complexities of culture, family expectations, and career ambitions. Here, we have real, unfiltered conversations with incredible women who are breaking barriers, charting their own paths, and owning their power. Together, we'll dive into the wins, the lessons, and the challenges we all face. And yeah, we'll laugh. We'll share stories and drop some actionable tips to help you crush it in your own way. This is your space to feel seen, heard, and inspired. Ready to rewrite the rules? Let's drop in. Welcome to the very first episode of Asian Like Me. And for this episode 1, I felt it was very appropriate to be in conversation with you and to share some of the reasons why I'm bringing this podcast to life. Let me start by saying that there is so much research out there around the growing Asian American population. I'll start by sharing research from the Pew Research Center, which shares that Asian Americans are 7% of the US population. This is as of 2021, based on the analysis of the American Community Survey. And our population is diverse, with roots in more than 20 countries in East Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Indian subcontinent. About 54% of the national Asian population are immigrants, and I happen to be one of those people. My story is that I was born in South Korea and I came to the United States at the age of 6. Technically not first generation. I think that first generation is defined as those that were born in the US. So a lot of people think that I was born in the US because I don't have an accent, but no, I was born in South Korea. I came over to the US at the age of 6, and in particular landed in Phoenix, Arizona. That is where my mom's relatives were and where we landed as the first place of many places that I ended up living in. And let me just share that our story is truly the American dream and the immigrant story in terms of my parents being in their late 20s, early 30s, and didn't know the language at all. At that time, back in 1982, when we came over, my parents didn't have Duolingo or Rosetta, all of the different language online ways that we can learn a different language now. They didn't have that back then. So literally, they came to the States, and certainly I didn't know the language. So we were plopped into the American context in Arizona. That was the start of my journey that was full of both challenges and on this side of adulthood have made all of the puzzle pieces fit together into who I am today. While I say they were challenges, today as an adult, I'm able to really reframe it from the perspective of all the ways that it's made me stronger. It was very challenging. When I think back to coming to the US at the age of 6, I didn't know the language. I certainly was teased for not knowing the language, for looking very different, for wearing different things. And we moved a lot. That posed another set of challenges. We moved every year from California to Arizona to Colorado. It was for the reason of my parents looking for jobs. They held down anywhere from 1 to 3 jobs at once, in which they cleaned offices, they worked in grocery stores. They did what they could and really hustled, which meant that my sister and I have an older sister. We were left to fend for ourselves. That's not too different from kids in that generation. As I talk to and get to know so many folks, children of the 80s, It's latchkey. We grew up very much looking after our own selves, walking home from school and turning on the TV as our babysitter, in essence. That isn't that different. It's really adding in the mix of trying to learn a new language and trying to fit in, which became the theme and my obsession of being seen and being like the others around me, which was a very Caucasian landscape at the time. My formative years in junior high and high school really became intensified in terms of trying to fit in. I recall dyeing my hair a different color. In college, wearing different colored contacts so that I could have green eyes or blue eyes because I was so fascinated and wanted to erase my cultural identity. I certainly didn't eat all the Korean cuisine, which is so prevalent today and that my kids love and that a lot of people are familiar with. It really was about, I'm just going to focus on learning English. I'm going to focus on fitting in as best as possible and trying to look uniform. In essence, erasing my cultural identity, my heritage. And I know that that's a story for many of us, whether we're immigrants or born here, is something that many of us can relate to. So, that being the backdrop of my youth, and it wasn't until I went to college, the University of Arizona in Tucson, that I started to get curious again about what it means to be Korean, even though at the time, this was mid 90s to late 90s, University of Arizona was predominantly Caucasian. I saw a few others that looked like me. And in my junior year, got really curious about, I wonder, I wanted to relearn the language. I started taking Korean classes and I saw that there were a lot of Asian Americans hanging out together at what was called the mall. And it's like this gathering that I noticed every week. My curiosity led me to learn that they joined or they were a part of the Asian American Cultural Association. So I joined that. In following my curiosity, I wanted to learn more about myself and my heritage again and other Asian Americans. That was the beginning of really getting back into my roots. And then I came to Los Angeles to pursue my PhD in organizational psychology, which catapulted my career. I've been in Los Angeles ever since and has been a reintegration into owning my identity and infusing that into who I am, owning it, and undoing some of the cultural barriers that were holding me back in the workplace. As a mom to three, I have three amazing humans. They also allowed me to reintegrate my identity because they are both Korean and Chinese. It was a wonderful way to really re-embrace the Asian identity, the parts of me that were lost. And as I fast forward into having received my PhD and accomplishing that, I really had to look at the ways that some of the different cultural barriers that were holding me back in the workplace. One in particular around really just doing the work and giving the utmost loyalty to elders, which is a very Asian belief that they know everything and your thoughts don't really matter and it doesn't count and what the elders say goes. That I think really did me a number in the workplace in which I didn't really question authority. I didn't question leadership or any of their perspectives. I just did the work. Didn't really advocate for myself either. I think that that really held me back in a number of ways that I had to undo. I had to learn how to advocate for myself. I had to learn how to speak and literally present in front of CEOs and the rooms that I was invited in because people saw in me potential. They put me up for projects and I was promoted pretty quickly in my career. I had to learn to share my perspective, have a perspective, and share it and be unapologetic about it in the rooms full of C-suite and leaders that I was a part of. That's been one big journey that I know a lot of women in particular, Asian females, come to really work on with me as their coach. And so, as an executive coach, one of the things that come naturally to me is themes. I'm really just quick to see themes. And one theme that I really noticed was how many Asian women were coming to me to be coached and to really look at the cultural barriers. But I do think there are absolute upsides to our heritage and our culture, wanting to really unpack that so that they can identify who they are as a leader, whether it's a formal title or not, and to advocate for themselves, whether it's in getting a promotion or moving up or moving into different roles. The theme of advocating, the theme of looking at their culture, the theme of really understanding how to work with it and became a big theme as a coach. This podcast is a 5-year journey in the making. And anyone that knows me knows that I don't do anything by shoulds. So I really wanted to make sure that this wasn't a I should do, given that I've had my own consultancy as an executive coach for the past 8 years. I didn't want to just do it out of a should. And I'm actually really allergic to that word. I also coach my clients around not doing things out of shoulds. For me, really looking at what is the conversation? What are the stories that I want to bring to life? And what's really meaningful and important to me? And it really jumped out that it's the ways in which Asian American women are doing really wonderful, badass work. And I mean work in the biggest sense of, in and out of the workplace. And I wanted to illuminate and bring forward stories that showcase the small wins, the big wins, the ways in which they are navigating their careers, the ways in which we are breaking barriers and really rewriting what it means to be the modern Asian female. And so, a lot of people will probably ask, so how do I define that? How I define what it means to be a modern Asian female is 3 words that jump out at me currently. And as we have more conversations on this podcast, I know that it will evolve. But for now, what feels right and true is that to be a modern Asian female means that we're dynamic. We are growth focused. And whether it's in our careers or in our personal lives, in every facet of our life, we are growth focused. We are limitless. It's all about the potential and the possibilities defined by our own values. You'll hear me share that a lot, our own values. It's really important to anchor onto the values because that is what helps us uniquely define success. The word limitless and potential and possibilities defined by our own values is another way that I describe what it means. And the last way is that we're integrated in our cultural heritage and we are American women and we are embodying the best of both, which could be a mixture, right? It doesn't have to just be binary. We are Asian and we are American, but all the ways in which our Asian heritage plays, whether you're Chinese or Filipina or Indian or Japanese or Korean or Vietnamese or any of the other Asian cultures that make up this really beautiful mosaic of Asian American. And it is about embodying the best of that and incorporating it into who we are as Americans. That's how I define it today. Dynamic, limitless, and integrated. I'm so excited to be in conversation with entrepreneurs, with founders, with leaders, with dynamic Asian American women who are writing their own stories. I, for one, know that certainly there are gaps, right? Certainly there are so many stories written about the rooms that we're not in, the work we still need to do to achieve parity, and that is absolutely true, and I don't deny that. I also know that there is so much power to the type of stories we share. I want us to amplify what is working. I want to amplify how we are making it through and showing up for ourselves and each other so that we can do more of that. I'm all about sharing the powerful stories that help us move forward versus focusing on lack. And as the Pew Research Center showed in a recent finding, Asian Americans are 7% of the US population. This is research that was done in 2021. And our population is diverse. We have roots in more than 20 countries in East Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Indian subcontinent. And about 54% of the national Asian population are immigrants. So I think that's important to share because the population will continue to grow and we need more stories. I know that representation and stories matter because I do very firmly believe in that quote that says that if you can see it, you can be it. That's what I'm in service of. And that is why I'm doing this podcast and looking forward to be in conversation. This is a community. This is a way to connect through our stories, a way to amplify, a way to see ourselves in each other. This is not a DE&I initiative. And I, for one, don't believe that being an Asian is an initiative. This isn't about DE&I. It's about us as humans and how we can continue to learn, grow, and support through these stories of what's working and what's going well. I cannot wait for you to listen and tune into episode 2, where I'm in conversation with the dynamic Sheena Yap Chan. So she's a Wall Street Journal bestselling author times two, a keynote speaker like myself, a strategist, an award-winning podcaster. I mean, she is so cool. We talk about self-confidence. And in particular, her first book, as well as the second book that's coming out soon. So tune in. I cannot wait to hear what resonates with you and what your key takeaways are. Join us. Asian Like Me with Dr. Sohee Jun, the podcast for the modern Asian woman, redefining what it means to thrive. Okay, here's my ask of you. Do not forget to share this episode. Please like it and subscribe. I promise you, you will not regret doing that. And if you really loved the conversation and there were some takeaways for you and some ahas, leave a review. Do not keep this podcast a secret. Remember, we're trying to amplify all the ways that Asian women are playing big. And, your support helps us continue to share the stories that matter and bring insights in the biggest way possible to this community. Okay? See you next time.